good evening, or whatever this hour means to you now. This is Casey Darnell, and you're listening to what's left of Station 82.5, still standing, still transmitting, still here. If you're hearing this, you're not alone. That might not seem like much right now, but trust me, it is. Today is what they're calling Day Zero. That's what the papers said before they stopped printing. Day Zero. The morning the dollar collapsed, the moment the floor dropped out from under everything we thought was solid. And let me be clear, this isn't a dip. This isn't a correction. This is the end of the thing we built our lives around. And it didn't just flicker out quietly. No, it went out screaming. People started lining up outside banks before the sun came up. By noon, half of them were closed. By sunset, none of them were answering the phones. And now, the ATMs are dark. Debit cards beep uselessly at stores with empty shelves. Gas stations are boarded up or looted. Or both. I heard someone got shot trying to trade silver coins for bottled water on Interstate 70. It's not just the money that's gone. It's the faith that held it together. That invisible thread that made people believe tomorrow would still look like today. It snapped. We've got reports coming in from what's left of the local network. I'll try to get through as many as I can. A caller from Cincinnati says there were fights at the grocery stores. Not just shouting. Fights. Full-on brawls over a bag of rice. A voice out of Tulsa described banks setting their own buildings on fire, probably to hide whatever they were hiding. Up in New England, a nurse called in from her hospital's rooftop. She said they're still open, still trying, but staff haven't been paid in 3 days. Some left, some stayed. The ones who stayed have been sleeping on the floor, living on vending machine snacks and tap water that might not stay clean much longer. A lot of you are probably wondering the same thing. How did it come to this? How did something so big fail so fast? It wasn't one thing. It never is. We could talk about the inflation, those early warning signs we all pretended weren't that bad, the rising prices, the interest rates, the debt ceiling talks that turned into a circus. The moment foreign markets started dumping U.S. treasuries like they were radioactive. But most people didn't notice until the gas pump stopped working. Then it got real. If you're holding on to cash right now, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. That's not a metaphor. People are literally burning it to stay warm. A woman from Baton Rouge left a voicemail a few hours ago. Said her husband was laid off last month. He used to work in logistics, shipping freight across the southern corridor. She said everything was already slowing down, even before today. Fewer orders, empty docks. She didn't know what to do, so she packed their car with whatever they had left, drove until they ran out of fuel. They're sleeping in the back seat somewhere near Shreveport. I'm going to say something now, and I need you to hear me clearly. The world isn't ending. It's changing. That change is going to hurt. It already is. But change doesn't mean death. Not if we don't let it. They've shut down trading across every major exchange. NASDAQ, NYSE, even foreign markets that tried to hold out. They've all gone dark. Crypto surged for maybe an hour before the plug got pulled. People started flooding out of the digital space and into tangible things, land, tools, food. And just like that, value changed shape. It always does. Some people are panicking. Others are organizing. That's something to watch for. Who panics and who pulls together. That'll tell you everything. I heard a man on a shortwave earlier today. Didn't catch his name. Said he was fixing up an old church outside Des Moines, turning it into a shelter. Said he had space for maybe 30 people. No qualifications. Just come with good intentions and keep your hands busy. That was it. You hear things like that, and it's easy to forget the headlines. To remember that we're still here, still human, still capable of something better than collapse. If you're listening, write things down. Not just this broadcast. Write down what you see, what you feel, what's changing around you. Stories matter. Truth matters. When the power's gone and the networks fail, your memory will be the only archive left. And one day, someone will need to know how this all began. I know it's dark right now. Not just outside, but inside too. It's hard not to feel like something's been ripped out from under you. Like everything familiar just disappeared. But look around. What's left? The sky is still there. The wind still moves through the trees. You're still breathing. If you're near others, you're still part of something. And if you're alone, you're still alive. That's the beginning of something else. It has to be. We've got more updates coming in, static heavy, scratchy, but clear enough to catch pieces. Someone out of Montana says the local sheriff's department switched to citizen patrols. They're not arresting people for theft anymore, just trying to keep the peace and make sure no one's killing each other over toothpaste. Another report out of Florida says the ports are jammed, cargo ships floating idle offshore, crews stuck, waiting for instructions that aren't coming. No one knows who's in charge anymore. Homeland's not responding. Treasury is silent. The president hasn't made a statement since yesterday morning, and even that was just a 90-second video clip, pre-recorded, no live questions. Rumors are everywhere. Some say there's a temporary government being formed in Denver. Others claim military units have gone rogue in parts of Texas. I can't confirm any of that yet. But here's what I do know. Power grids are starting to stagger. If you've got a generator, conserve fuel. If you're on solar, ration your charge. Don't waste anything. Don't waste hope either. I know that sounds cheap. Hope doesn't fix a broken system. It doesn't buy bread or keep your kids warm. But it keeps your hands steady. It keeps you from turning on your neighbor when you should be helping them build a wall or dig a fire pit. Stay with me. I'll keep talking as long as I can. You keep listening as long as you're able. This is Casey Darnell, broadcasting from what's left of the old WRQ station outside St. Louis. The clock stopped here, but I think it's close to midnight. You're not alone. If you're just tuning in, though I don't know who's still tuning anything at this point, this is station 82.5, and I'm still Casey Darnell. Still breathing, still transmitting. And no, things haven't gotten any better since the last hour. But you're here. That counts for something. Let's talk about what happened in Chicago. I got a message from someone claiming to be a municipal engineer. Name was Noah, sounded mid-50s. You could hear the weight in his voice. He said the power outages weren't just rolling blackouts. They were cuts, deliberate ones. The city had to triage its own grid, save power for hospitals and emergency services. But when people found out their neighborhoods were being left out, riots broke out. Not angry, chanting kind of riots. Desperate ones. Looters didn't take flat screens or cell phones. They went straight for canned food, diapers, over-the-counter meds. Stuff you don't think about until you have none. Noah said he watched as one of the substations got overrun, not by looters, just people, families. They didn't even understand what they were trying to do. They thought flipping the switches would bring the lights back on. All it did was trip the entire block. By dusk, parts of the city were pitch black, cold, silent, except for gunshots, screams, and generators buzzing like insects. Noah didn't stay. He left his post. He didn't sound proud of that. Just honest. Said he had to get home to his sister's kids. Said, quote, "I realized I could save a city or save my family. Not both." Then he cried. Didn't hang up, just cried. And I listened until the signal faded. That's the thing I've noticed. When systems fail, people don't. Not at first. It's the systems that fall apart like wet paper. The banks, the supply chains, the official channels, all that stuff collapses in hours. But people? We fray slower. It takes time. We try to help. We reach for each other. And only when we're starving, freezing, or scared enough, then we break. Let's not break just yet. I've got a scratchy signal from a ham radio relay out west. A teacher named Carla, maybe 50 years old, has turned her rural high school into a temporary shelter. Said it started with just her and her neighbor's kid. Then more showed up. 6, then 12, then 30. They don't have heat. They don't have running water anymore, but they've got books, blankets, and a generator that works when they take turns biking a dynamo. She's teaching again, she said, by lantern light. Civics, of all things, said it felt like a joke at first, teaching government structure after the government vanished. But the kids listen. They ask questions. One of them asked if they could vote to bring the dollar back. Carla laughed. Then she said, "Maybe one day." If you're hearing this, Carla, you're not a joke. You're a lifeline. Let me say this again, for anyone drifting in and out of signal range. The money is gone. The paper is still in your wallets, but the meaning's bled out of it. You can't trade it for bread. Not anymore. People are turning to other things, skills, fuel, seeds, bullets, tools. A man up near the Rockies said he traded a box of screws for a whole bag of dried beans. Said it was the best deal he ever made. Another guy in rural Ohio said he fixed up a neighbor's generator in exchange for a shotgun and a handshake. No paperwork, no contracts, just trust. Imagine that. Trust as currency. Maybe that's how it should have always been. There's a story out of northern Mississippi. A woman named Letitia set up a roadside stand. Nothing fancy, just a folding table and a hand-painted sign. She's not selling anything. She's trading. Bread for eggs, cabbage for firewood, hand sanitizer for batteries. People stop. They line up. They leave something, take something, and say thank you before walking off. No security. No guards. Just a line of strangers treating each other like they matter. Like they still live in a world where kindness has weight. And that's the part nobody talks about when systems fall. Not just what you lose, but what you start to remember. A man from Alabama sent me a letter. Yes, a real one. Folded paper, scrawled ink. Said he found an old typewriter in his attic. Started using it to write down everything he saw. Said he hadn't written a real letter in 20 years. Forgot how it felt to touch words. Said the clack of the keys reminded him of his grandmother's house, of slow afternoons, of quiet, of a world that didn't run on plastic cards and algorithmic timing. There's poetry in the ruin if you listen for it. Not the kind you put in books. The kind that hums under your ribs when you remember something real. That's why I keep broadcasting. Not because I think I can fix any of this. I can't. But if I can keep a signal up, if I can keep one person from going under, if I can remind you that there's still someone else out here, listening, then maybe that's enough. Someone from Denver just sent word through a backup channel. There's a group forming out there, calling themselves the Ledger. No hierarchy, no politics, just a rule book. a way to keep track of who trades what, who needs what, and who's doing their part. It's written in pencil on a wall in an old community center. People come by, add their names, cross things out, leave notes. A new kind of currency. Not printed, not digital. Just human. Let me tell you something personal before this signal flickers again. My mother used to keep a coffee can full of coins. She called it emergency money. Nickels, quarters, pennies, just in case. I asked her once why she bothered, said nobody uses coins anymore. She looked at me and said, "You don't prepare for what you expect. You prepare for what you can't imagine." Well, here we are. The thing we couldn't imagine. So maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's the part after the end. The strange middle. The waiting room before something new. I don't know what the world will look like next week. I don't know if there'll still be power here, or running water, or broadcasts. But I do know this. You're not crazy for being scared. You're not weak for being tired. You're not alone. Keep your radios close. Keep your people closer. I'll be here until I can't be. This is Casey Darnell, still holding the line at station 82.5, just outside what used to be St. Louis. I can't tell you the exact time. Our clocks aren't reliable anymore, and the cell towers have stopped syncing. But the sky outside is dark, and the crickets have stopped chirping, which tells me it's later than it feels. If you've just tuned in, we are on day 0, the day the US dollar collapsed. Not a rumor, not a scare. It's real. It's here. We've crossed that line. Whatever we were before this, we're not that anymore. I want to talk now about the silence. Not the kind that comes when the signal drops. Not even the kind that follows bad news. I mean the deep silence. The one that's everywhere now. No hum of traffic. No checkout beeps. No whirring vending machines. Just this eerie stillness that wraps around everything like fog. It's like the world stopped exhaling. Like we're waiting to see if it's safe to move again. I had a call from a trucker, goes by the name Mac. He said he was stuck outside Omaha when the fuel station stopped accepting cards. He had a full rig, but couldn't move. Left it on the side of the road and started walking west with a pack and a wrench in case things got ugly. He said the weirdest part wasn't the chaos, but the stillness. He walked for 4 hours without hearing a single engine. Not one. Just wind and gravel under his boots. He said it felt like time was starting over. I think that's what we're all feeling. The end of one kind of noise and the beginning of another. The quiet kind. The kind that forces you to listen. To the air. To your heartbeat. To the people around you. The kind you can't ignore. Let's check in on the Appalachian line. There's a relay station up there we've been pinging all day. Finally got through about an hour ago. Voice on the other end was a guy named Benji, mid-20s, former EMT. He's up on the ridge near Asheville, helping run a mountain pass checkpoint. Not for control, not for security. Just to stop people from getting lost or wandering into danger. They've got signs made from old road panels, painted in charcoal and oil. Turn back. Unsafe beyond this point. Benji said they're trying to map which paths still lead to functioning communities and which ones don't. He told me about a family that came up the pass yesterday. 4 of them. Parents, 2 daughters, been walking for days. All they had was a stroller full of rice and canned beans. The youngest was maybe 7, carrying a backpack twice her size. When they reached the checkpoint, they didn't ask for food. They didn't ask for shelter. They just asked for directions. Benji said he cried after they left, not because they were in bad shape, but because they still had the strength to keep going. That's the kind of strength we need now, not the kind that shouts or fights, the kind that walks, quietly, steadily, through whatever comes. We've gotten scattered messages from the Pacific Northwest, a mix of Morse, voice clips, and handwritten notes sent with travelers heading inland. Seattle's dark, Portland too. But further north, near the border, there's something forming. An old farming co-op reactivated. They're bartering seeds for labor. No hierarchy. Just people trading what they can. Some say they're even trying to restart local currencies. Handwritten promissory notes that track goods exchanged. It's not perfect. It's not fast. But it works. For now. If you're in that region, look for the old trail markers. 3 rocks stacked on top of one another near crossroads. That's the signal. Safe passage. Or at least safer than the cities. We've been monitoring the eastern seaboard too, what we can of it. Boston's quiet. New York is something else entirely. We're hearing of blackouts stretching for miles, of neighborhoods turning into fortresses. People blocking off streets with cars, wood, anything they can find. Not to keep others out, just to slow them down long enough to talk, to figure out who's a threat and who just needs a place to sleep. A woman from Brooklyn said they turned the lobby of her apartment building into a trading post. She's been sleeping in the stairwell for the past 3 nights, listening for footsteps, listening for anything. She said the worst sound she hears now is a knock, because nobody knocks anymore, unless it's something serious. I told her to keep that stairwell safe, to light a candle at night, not for the light, but for the reminder. She laughed, said it reminded her of blackout drills from when she was a kid. Then she started crying. That's what this is doing to people. The pressure, the unknown. It presses into the corners of your mind and drags old things out, things you didn't think you still remembered. And sometimes, those memories are the only things keeping you anchored. We heard from a man in Utah, runs a former military surplus store. Said he opened his doors and told people to take what they needed. Not because he's some kind of saint. He just knew he couldn't protect it. So instead of losing everything to violence, he turned it into a community armory. He said a teenager who used to shoplift from him came in with a note and a jar of pickled eggs. Left it on the counter. Didn't say anything. Just nodded and walked out. That's the currency now, not gold, not crypto, not even paper. It's action. It's what you do when nobody's watching. What you give when there's nothing left to count. If you're still with me, still listening, then take this moment to look around you. Not for danger, though yeah, do that too, but for each other. Do you have someone near you? Are they breathing? Are they safe? Are they scared? Say something, even if it's just a few words, even if you're strangers. Because that's what kept us alive before there were banks and governments and networks. Other people. That's what's going to carry us through this. Not miracles, not promises, just each other. Hold tight. I'll be back with more in a few minutes. As long as the power stays. As long as the antenna holds. You're not alone. You're still listening to station 82.5. This is Casey. We're still here somehow. If the signal's crackling a bit, it's because we lost the backup inverter an hour ago. Running on the last legs of what's left. Still got enough juice for now. Earlier today, I spoke to a guy named Travis, somewhere outside Baton Rouge. He's staying in the shell of an old hardware store with about a dozen others. Said they've barricaded the doors and reinforced the windows with scrap metal and old roofing tin. Not because they're scared of looters, there's nothing left to loot, but because last night, someone tried to break in just to get warm. Not to steal, just to sleep near others. Travis said something that stuck with me. He said, "We thought collapse would be loud. It's not. It's quiet. Real quiet." And he's right. You think of economic collapse like a thunderclap, a sudden catastrophic burst. But this is more like a slow exhale. And when that breath is gone, all that's left is the silence and the waiting. We're getting less traffic on the bands now. More static, fewer voices. That might be because more stations are going dark. Or it might just be that people are scared to speak. Let me tell you what's happening in parts of Arizona. Some towns out there are pulling together better than most. Small desert communities where people already knew how to live with less. They're rationing water, organizing watches, even setting up little trading posts in school gymnasiums. There's a town outside Flagstaff where a woman named Teresa is running the local clinic by candlelight. No staff left. Just her, an old med kit, and a crank radio. She's not taking money. She's taking food, or work, or nothing. Just helping, because someone has to. She said they've already delivered 3 babies since the collapse. No power, no machines, just towels, boiling water, and hands that remember what to do. She said each birth felt like its own little rebellion, a reminder that the world hasn't stopped. It's just starting a different kind of beat. That's the thread we're all hanging on now. Small acts. Quiet defiance. We can't bring the system back, not today. But we can keep each other upright. We had a shortwave burst come in from southern Canada. A farmer named Eli said he's been helping people cross the border. Not officially, just guiding them through wooded trails and open land. He's not doing it for money, obviously. He said he's doing it because that's what his grandfather would have done. Said the strangest part was watching people carry cash across the border like it still mattered. Wads of it, wrapped in plastic, some buried in their shoes, sewn into coats. You'd think it was gold the way they clung to it, he said. But it's just paper now, just ghosts of what we thought had value. And yet they carry it, maybe out of habit, maybe out of hope, that something might change, that someone, somewhere, might still accept it. I don't blame them. We all need something to hold on to. In Detroit, we got a crackling message on one of the old repeater loops. Someone set up a makeshift market under a freeway overpass. No prices, no signs, just people sitting in circles, showing what they had, whispering about what they needed. And they don't trade out loud. They gesture. They write things on scraps of cardboard and pass them around. Why? Because sound carries in those places. And desperation listens. They're calling it the hush market, a marketplace of silence, like something out of a storybook, but real enough that someone risked their battery just to tell me about it. You see, we're still building, even now, especially now. Up north, near the Dakotas, another kind of story is unfolding. A group of ranchers pooled what fuel they had and started moving livestock into communal pens. Not for profit, just to keep the animals alive. One of them, old guy named Jacob, said he hadn't talked to his neighbor in 10 years. But now, he said, we're feeding each other's cows. That's the kind of economy nobody saw coming. One built not on scarcity, but on survival, on grid. on remembering that there are more important things than ledgers and balance sheets. I know some of you out there are waiting for the fix. You think maybe the government's working on something. Maybe the Fed's got a backup plan. Some kind of new currency. Some kind of new deal. And maybe they do. Maybe there's a team in a bunker somewhere, huddled over glowing screens, plotting a reset. But if there is, they haven't told us. They haven't said a word. No briefings, no broadcasts, just silence. And in that silence, we have to choose what kind of world we make for ourselves. I don't know if you believe in prayer, or fate, or the rhythm of history. I don't know if you believe this is punishment or coincidence. All I know is that we're here now, all of us, in the middle of something we didn't plan for, in the middle of a page we don't know how to write. But we still have pens, we still have voices, we still have hands. So we write, we speak, we build. And maybe that's enough. I'll keep this line open, I'll keep talking, and if you've got something to share, news, a story, a warning, then send it. However you can. Shortwave, Morse, paper plane if it flies far enough. Just keep the current moving. I'll be right here. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell, still here at station 82.5. The storm passed about an hour ago. No thunder, just wind and dust, like the land itself was shaking off old skin. The tower creaked. I could hear it groaning in the gusts. For a moment I thought we'd lose the feed. But we're still standing. Someone once told me that when you're in a storm, the safest place isn't always inside. Sometimes it's just wherever you're not alone. Tonight, that's all this station is, a shelter made of sound. I want to talk for a minute about something I never used to notice. The shape of quiet. Back before all this, silence just meant a break between things. Between ads, between meetings, between errands. You never thought about what it actually felt like to be inside of it. But now you notice the shape of it. You notice how it stretches across neighborhoods, how it presses against the walls of your house like water trying to get in. Earlier today, I sat for a while with the mic off, just listening. Not to anything in particular, just breathing. The kind of quiet that carries stories if you wait long enough. And sure enough, they came. First was a Morse tap from somewhere in Kentucky, someone tapping out coordinates and the word safe, no other details, no voice, just a ... whisper through the static. I tapped back, don't know if they heard, but I tried. Then a voice out of New Jersey. Woman named Celine, she used to be a barista, said her cafe turned into a supply post overnight. They're trading bags of ground beans for batteries, eggs, sometimes shoes. She said they keep the espresso machine on, even though they can't run it, just for comfort. Just so people remember it used to hum. I asked her what she missed most. She said, tips, not the money. The tiny scraps of paper people left, notes, jokes, sometimes just a smiley face. I miss knowing someone saw me. That one hit me harder than I expected, because that's what we're really starving for now, isn't it? Not food, not fuel, just the feeling of being seen, being part of something. I've got more updates, some hopeful, some not. From the Carolinas, word is spreading that certain rail lines are still operational. Not public, not fast, but functional. Some engineers have taken to hand-cranking old maintenance cars down the tracks, linking them with flatbeds and hauling supplies between scattered towns. No schedule, no tickets, just motion. If you see one, wave it down, offer help, or step aside and let it pass. Those little rail convoys are arteries now, the last lines keeping movement alive. Out west, we heard from an old fisherman in the Pacific Inlet. Name's Reggie. Said he's been going out every morning, bringing in what he can, and dropping nets off at isolated cabins. No contact, no words, just nets and buckets left on porches. He doesn't ask for anything in return. If I can keep someone from starving, that's payment, he said. That's what we've come to, and it's beautiful in its own ragged, threadbare way. We got a faint signal from Mexico today, barely audible, just enough to catch fragments of what sounded like a bilingual community organizing cleanup in border towns. No politics, no borders, just people trying to patch the world from the bottom up. I wish I had better news about DC. Nothing's come out in over a day now. No new briefings, no confirmation of continuity. Some say there are still operatives underground, keeping the machinery running. But from here, it looks like silence. The last transmission we got mentioned evacuation orders being issued to certain neighborhoods, then static. We tried reaching out through old emergency frequencies, but the lines are dead. So if you're in the capital or anywhere near, don't wait for orders. Look after each other, build fences, dig wells, trust your neighbors, or leave. We had a voice from Kansas this morning, man named Malcolm. Ran a mechanic shop just off the interstate. He said people keep pulling in asking for repairs, but not paying. Not because they're thieves, because they don't have anything left to offer. He started writing down their names, not to shame them, to remember. He says someday, when things are different, he'll read that list out loud, and every name on it will have a chance to pay him back. Not in dollars, in time, in kindness, in fuel maybe, or maybe not at all. Maybe the remembering is the payment. Here's a reminder for those of you still trying to get word out. Shortwave bands are still up in most places, especially at night. If you've got a unit, tune to 3.750 megahertz between midnight and 2 a.m. local time. That's where most of the chatter is. Say your name, your town, and what you need, or what you can offer. If you've got nothing else, offer your voice. That's enough. I want to close this hour with a story. A boy, maybe 12, sent us a message through one of the regional towers. His voice cracked a little, like he was trying not to cry. Said his parents were gone, didn't say how. Just gone. He's holed up in a basement in Indiana. He said he'd been listening to the broadcast for days, drawing little pictures of the people I talked about. Stick figures, some of them. Others with little hats or backpacks or dogs. He said, I make them look like superheroes because they're still here. I didn't have the heart to tell him that most of them were just tired, just scared, just people. But maybe that's what a superhero really is now. Just someone who hasn't given up. If you're hearing this, kid, keep drawing, keep listening, and know that someone out there knows your voice. That's something nobody can take from you. All right. I'll be back again soon, if the grid holds. This is Casey, Station 82.5. You're not alone. Still here, still transmitting, still breathing. This is Casey Darnell on 82.5, broadcasting out to whoever's left with a working radio and the patience to hear another voice. The wind's died down, and the hum of the tower is soft again. Still sounds like it's trying to sing through its wires. Maybe that's all any of us are doing now, humming our way through what's left. Some of you have been asking what we think caused this. What tipped it? What straw finally snapped the old spine of the dollar? Truth is, there's no single answer. And even if there was, I don't know if it would matter now. Maybe it was when other countries stopped buying our debt. Maybe it was the moment faith gave way to math. Maybe it was just time. Paper can only stretch so far before it tears. But I'll tell you this. It didn't start last week. It didn't even start last year. This thing had roots going back decades. Every time a bill was printed without value behind it. Every time a system rewarded greed and punished need. Every time we called the markets free but chained them to a game only a few knew how to play. This was coming, and now it's here. But that's not the story I want to tell tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about anchorage. We got a relay message from a pilot, call sign Falcon Red. He's been flying solo supply drops in an old prop plane, stitched together from spare parts and stubbornness. Said he landed on a frozen lake just outside the city. Said it looked like a painting, white silence and wrecked light. But here's the part that matters. He said when he touched down, people came out of the trees. Quiet, slow, cautious. Not to rob him, not to fight, just to help. They pulled the crates, unloaded fuel drums. One man brought coffee. Real coffee. The kind you brew on a fire with melted snow. He handed it to the pilot and said, "We've been waiting for someone to show up." That's the story, that someone always shows up. Further south, in what's left of San Diego, a group has taken over an old hotel. Not to squat, to organize. They've turned the rooms into triage centers. The parking garage is a supply depot. The ballroom is a radio node, covered in whiteboards and blinking LEDs held together with duct tape. They're not calling it a government. Just the hall. A place where decisions are made out loud, in daylight, with witnesses. A man there named Jordan said, "We're not rebuilding what broke. We're starting over." And maybe that's what more of us need to hear, that we don't have to remake the past. We can shape something better if we last long enough to try. Now I want to pass along a warning. There have been reports, several now, of fake shelters, places claiming to be safe zones but turning out to be traps. Not by the infected, not by anyone sick, just desperate people who've gone too far. Gangs, militias, sometimes just a few violent cowards with nothing left to lose. If you're approaching a shelter, look for signs of life before you step inside. Smoke that smells like cooking, not burning. Voices speaking, not shouting. And always check for power lines. Real shelters often guard generators. The bad ones don't bother. They just want what you carry. We got word from a woman named Danica out in Oklahoma. She's running a sort of underground school out of her storm cellar. About a dozen kids, ages 6 to 14. She's teaching them how to garden, how to cook over open flame, how to listen to shortwave. Not because she expects things to go back, but because she wants them ready if this becomes forever. She said they start every day with 10 minutes of silence. Not prayer, not meditation, just silence, so they can hear what the world sounds like now. If they don't know how to listen, she said, they'll forget how to speak. That one stopped me cold. Because maybe that's what we're all doing now, learning how to hear again, how to listen to the land, to each other, to ourselves. And maybe out of that quiet, we'll figure out how to speak a new language, one without interest rates and stock margins, one with hands and barter and trust that takes weeks to earn and seconds to lose. Let me tell you about a town in Georgia. It's not on any current map anymore. The highways leading to it are blocked with burned-out cars and old caution tape. But if you find the right gravel path, and you follow it far enough, you'll come to a place where the trees thin out and the wind smells like ash and pine. There, people have dug into the hills, literal dugouts, earth shelters reinforced with salvaged doors and broken down RVs. They've painted symbols on rocks to guide travelers. Circles mean food, arrows mean direction. An open palm means welcome. They call the place Hollow Bend, and what they have there isn't much, but it's enough. Enough to keep going, enough to keep from turning on one another. And every night, they light a fire in the center of the camp, not to cook, just to sit. They don't sing. They don't tell stories. Not yet. But they sit, and they look at the flames, and sometimes that's enough. If you're passing through that area, keep your eyes open for painted stones. Follow the hand. Trust it if you can. We've got more coming in from the Gulf Coast, harder to pin down. But it sounds like old shrimping boats are being repurposed as floating safe houses. They drift from bay to bay, never dock for more than a few hours. They use flares to signal. Green for safe, red for danger. If you see a green flare at sea, you might just find a place to sleep. But if you see red, turn back. All right, I'm going to pause here and reset the relay. Backup power is low, and I've got to keep the batteries stable. Hold tight, keep each other warm, keep your ears open. This is Casey, signing off for now. You're not alone. Not tonight. Not yet. The signal's holding, which means I'm still here. This is Casey Darnell, coming to you from what's left of station 82.5. If you're awake and listening, that makes two of us, maybe more. I like to think there are hundreds out there, maybe thousands, sitting by radios in basements, garages, candlelit kitchens, waiting to hear proof that the world is still spinning. We're now deep into day 0. Feels like we've been living it forever. The roads are emptier than they've ever been, not just because there's no gas, but because there's no destination. No one's going to work. No one's making deliveries. There are no errands left to run. And when the roads go quiet, it's like the whole country is holding its breath. I got a voice message earlier from an older man out of Montana. Calls himself Red. He said, "The last time I saw these streets this quiet, we'd just come out of a blizzard that took down half the town. Said back then, people were stranded but still had hope the trucks would come. This time," he said, "we're stranded, and no one's coming." But Red also said something else. He said he's been boiling snow for water, cooking beans over an old wood stove, and fixing every broken tool in sight. Said it keeps his hands busy and his mind quieter than it has any right to be. That's what survival looks like now. Not fighting off mobs or making dramatic last stands. Just boiling water, patching leaks, keeping your hands from going idle. Further down in Texas, there's a place called Barrow Field. Used to be a racetrack. Now it's a barter camp. They've got tents lined up on the infield. Somebody strung wires across the grandstands to dry clothes. They've posted volunteers to patrol the perimeter, not to enforce anything, just to make sure everyone inside gets a chance to sleep without a knife at their throat. One of the organizers said they don't use names anymore. Not unless you offer. People show up, trade, eat, and go. No questions, no record keeping, just motion. It's like a heartbeat made out of people. And here's the thing. Barrow Field doesn't have power, doesn't have phones, doesn't have running water unless someone hauls it in a tank. But it works. People come from miles around just to talk to others who don't look like ghosts. Maybe that's what we all need, just to be seen. We got a faint signal from Alaska again. This one from a research outpost that's been off-grid since before the collapse. Apparently, they didn't notice anything was wrong for nearly 48 hours. Their supply run was late, but they just assumed weather delays. Then their sat phone went dead. The man on the line said he booted up a backup receiver and scanned the bands. "All I could hear," he said, "was your voice and the wind." They're holding steady. Plenty of dry goods. Melted snow for water. They're sharing what they have with the handful of local families who've come knocking. Said they've turned the supply shed into a kind of pantry. No locks, just trust. Let me repeat that. No locks, just trust. Somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves that strength was about force, but strength is sharing when you're scared. That's the truth of it. Back here in Missouri, things are tense. The city's gone dark. No sirens, no traffic, no signals. Just the occasional candle flicker in a window, or the sound of someone dragging something heavy across pavement. I've seen people boarding up storefronts with anything they can find. I passed a group earlier stacking books against a window. Books, the kind people used to throw away. Now they're shields. And once the paper is gone, I wonder what we'll write on. Maybe walls, maybe skin, maybe each other. I heard from a woman in Minneapolis, Ada. She's been walking north for 3 days with her daughter. No car, no phone, just a compass and a backpack. They're following the train tracks, hoping to find a place where the signals are stronger, where people are still organized. She said her daughter talks to the trees, says hello to them like they're old friends. "I think it's helping her stay sane," she said. "I think it might be helping me too." Let your kids talk to the trees. Let them name the birds, even if they can't fly anymore. Let them pretend the stars are listening, because maybe they are. If you've been hearing rumors about a safe zone in the upper Great Lakes region, I can tell you now, it's real. At least, it was this morning. There's a compound near the edge of the Huron National Forest, built on what used to be a campground. They've got water, solar, tents, radios. They're calling it Camp Needle, after a pine tree that still stands in the center. Word is, they accept anyone. No screening. No armed guards. Just a soft voice on a shortwave that says, "If you can hear us, you're welcome. If you're nearby, follow the old forestry roads. Look for a tree marked with red fabric and a painted arrow. Follow that. It might be your way out." We're also hearing from scattered places in New Mexico, where the terrain is doing more to protect people than any wall could. High rocks, narrow passes, natural choke points. Small communities are thriving there. They know how to live without plenty. They know how to make things last. One man said he's been using the same water filter for 4 years. Keeps it wrapped in cloth, like an heirloom. That's where we are now. A water filter is treasure. A working battery is priceless. And a good neighbor is everything. For those trying to keep track, power grids across the Midwest are still fluctuating. Rolling brownouts at best. Total loss in some areas. If you're running anything off the grid, conserve. Sleep during dark hours. Work in the daylight. Watch for sparks. Fires are spreading faster than people can put them out. Keep water nearby. Keep a fire break if you're outside city lines. And never run your generator too long in one place. The sound carries. And sound brings company you don't want. We had a ham signal from southern Illinois, short and shaky. It was just 3 words. Still here, waiting. That's all. That's all some of us can say right now. Still here, waiting. So let's wait together. I'll be back with more soon. This is Casey, station 82.5. And wherever you are, if your eyes are open and your breath is steady, you're still part of this. And that matters more than you know. This is Casey Darnell, still holding the line from station 82.5. No background music, no ads, no cheerful voices in between, just the same chair, the same mic, the same voice trying to make sense of a world that spun itself apart. I haven't slept in a day, maybe 2. Hard to keep track, but I figure I'm not the only one. Sleep doesn't come easy when the old rules stop working, when the soft sounds you used to fall asleep to, like engines outside or late-night TV bleeding through the wall, are gone, replaced by static or wind, or the hollow thud of someone dragging a cart down the middle of an empty street. Got a report from Utah this evening. Group of families has taken over an abandoned shopping center, not a mall, just one of those strip plazas with a laundromat, a small grocery, a couple old shops. They've boarded it up, built fire barrels behind the loading docks, and assigned night watches using old baby monitors. They call it the Row. They've got rules. 1, no weapons indoors. 2, food is pooled and rationed, no exceptions. 3, every person does something every day, even if it's just sorting cans or telling stories to the kids. Because they say even a story is work now, it reminds people we still exist. One of the older women there, Marta, called in on a shortwave. Said she spends each morning grinding old coffee beans with a hammer, just for the smell. Said it calms her hands. Said it reminds her of mornings when there were still headlines and routines and arguments about cream. She cried, gently, while describing the smell. Not because of the loss, because of the memory. It's hard to know what to hold on to, which comforts we should preserve and which ones we should let go. But I think if something makes you feel more human, if it reminds you who you were before all this, then it's worth keeping, even if it's just the sound of a coffee grinder. We got a stronger signal than usual from the East Coast this afternoon. Came in from someone in Richmond, Virginia. Said that a church there, burned out decades ago, roof long gone, has become a gathering spot. People come every third night, bring food, news, trade blankets, antibiotics, stories. They sit in the pews with no roof above them, looking up at the stars like they're waiting for answers. Said last night, someone brought a guitar, played until the strings broke. Nobody clapped. They just sat there, listening, like it was the last song they'd ever hear. That's the new economy. Silence, memory, music that doesn't need electricity. A man from Fargo sent us a letter. Real paper. Stamped. I have no idea how it got here, but I'm holding it in my hand now, the creases still sharp. It says only this: my daughter traded her last dollar for a used sweater. She said it was worth it because it smelled like laundry detergent, like someone had tried. That's all we're doing, I think. Just trying. That letter's going up on the wall here, next to the others. A growing collage of proof that we tried. Let's shift to the south for a second. Louisiana's bayous have become highways again. Flatboats, pirogues, anything that floats. People are using water the way they did before there were roads, traveling by stream, by current. One man said he navigates with a flashlight taped to an oar. Said gators are less of a threat than the dark now. And here's something I didn't expect to hear. There's a floating market forming outside Lafayette. They anchor together at dusk, boats linked by ropes, each one carrying different goods. No engines, no motors, just paddles and patience. They trade smoked meat, fish, moonshine, hand-knitted gloves. One boat, no joke, sells nothing but stories. The man on board has an old hand-crank Victrola and a stack of recordings. People bring him batteries and he plays them something in return. That's what $1 used to be. A promise that someone would give you something back. Now the promises are spoken out loud, face to face, with no middleman. Let me tell you about a place called Jericho Hill. That's in Wyoming. Wasn't even a real town before. Just a wide spot where a few cabins sat under pine trees. But now, it's something else. A checkpoint. A marker. A place you pass through if you're headed west. People leave things there. Supplies, mostly. Extra socks, tins of beans, carved walking sticks. But they also leave notes. Hundreds of them. Tacked onto trees, nailed into fence posts, weighted down under rocks. Josh, we're headed north. Wait if you can. Mom, we made it to the Big Bend. We'll wait 5 days. If you find this, keep going. It's safer past the ridge. It's like a forest of voices. No longer digital. Just ink, paper, and the hope that someone reads it. If you're traveling and you come across Jericho Hill, stop for a minute. Read something. Leave something. That's how we keep each other alive now. We've had a lot of messages about the water supply. Boil it. Filter it. Let it sit in sunlight. I'm not a scientist, but I know this. If you're near standing water and you smell sulfur or fuel, don't touch it. If you see rainwater, catch it. If you have bleach, 10 drops per gallon, no more. Stir it. Wait. Drink slow. Treat water like treasure. Because that's what it is now. Not money, not metal, water. That and trust. I want to end this segment with something someone said to me yesterday. An old farmer near Nashville, voice like gravel in a tin can. He said, "We used to measure value by what we kept. Now we measure it by what we share." He's right. So share what you can. Your tools, your food, your time, your quiet. I'll keep the mic warm. I'll keep the frequency open, as long as the grid lets me. This is Casey, station 82.5. You're not alone, not as long as you can still hear this voice. You're tuned to station 82.5. If tuned is even the right word anymore. Feels more like drifting. Like our voices are paper boats floating across a river none of us can see the edges of. I'm Casey Darnell. Still here, still speaking. And if you're hearing this, then your world hasn't gone completely dark either. Let's talk about Denver. We just got confirmation through a courier relay, a network of riders on bicycles and motorbikes running up and down the spine of the Rockies. They're calling it the spine line. And the message they brought in this morning was short, but clear. Denver's no longer under federal control. Not that anyone's saying it officially, but those still operating out of the Civic Center are calling themselves the Commons. No leaders, just committees. They meet in what used to be the art museum, among the sculptures, the broken frames, the faded paint. They sit in circles. No suits, no ranks, just voices. They've issued a call. Anyone who can make it safely and is willing to work is welcome. Bring what you have. Bring what you know. But don't come for handouts. Come to build. They've reopened the old trolleys for hauling firewood and food. Horses are being used again, real ones. The city parks have been converted into gardens. No fences, just dirt, seed, and sweat. It's messy, it's slow, but it's working. Some say it feels like a town from 200 years ago. Others say it feels like the future. Maybe those two things aren't as far apart as we thought. Now, for a harder piece of news. We've received multiple independent reports that Fort Knox has been evacuated. Not just the personnel, everything. Trucks left in the middle of the night, headed east, then vanished. No official confirmation, no statements, just empty gates and a locked-down perimeter. And that tells you everything you need to know. The system didn't crash because of a mistake. It crashed because it was always this fragile. And now that the paper's worthless, the gold's gone too. So what does that leave us? United States. Still here. Still reaching across the static. Let me read something to you. Came from a man in Boise, Idaho, typed on an old word processor and printed with a dot matrix printer, of all things. Someone walked it here across 2 states, trading bread and aspirin along the way. We spent years chasing a number in a bank we couldn't see. We called it freedom. But now, standing in a line for soup I didn't pay for, I finally feel free. Not because I have nothing, but because I have no illusions left. It's strange, isn't it? How clear things get when everything you were counting on is gone. There's a fishing village along the Oregon coast. Names washed off the signs, but the signal's strong. They're running off wind and pedal power. Every night, they host what they call the tide meeting. No chairs, just driftwood and sand. Everyone brings something, an idea, a warning, a joke. They sit, they eat what they caught, they vote on what needs fixing, and then they take turns watching the surf roll in, waiting for whatever comes next. If that's not government, I don't know what is. Closer to here, in Illinois, we've been tracking a woman named Elsie. She runs a children's caravan. Not an orphanage, not quite a school. More like a rolling village of small feet and quiet resilience. They move every few days, never more than 20 of them. She pulls a cart with a crank radio, and they paint their path on the road in chalk, so if the children are ever separated, they know which way the wagon rolled. The other day, they passed through a small town and left behind drawings, on walls, on windows, in the dust of car windshields, smiling faces, suns, words like keep going and still love. Some people walked into that town broken. They walked out with a little more light in their chests. Let me say something plain. If you're listening, and you've done something like that, something kind, small, and quiet, thank you. Don't wait for applause. Don't wonder if it mattered. It did. Because all these quiet acts, stitched together, are the only map we have. We got a distress ping from the southeast this afternoon, Tallahassee area. It was a short burst, maybe 8 seconds, just long enough to catch coordinates and the word cut. We're not sure what it means yet. Could be power, could be roads, could be worse. If you're near that area, proceed with care. Move only if you have to. Look for signs of movement, but don't trust clusters unless you know the people. Some cities are hollow now, still standing, but emptied of anyone you'd want to meet. A man from just outside Raleigh said it best. It's like walking through someone else's dream. Nothing moves, but it still feels alive. Before the hour's up, I want to share one last thing. A child's voice came through the band this morning. No call sign, just a whisper of a sentence. My brother says the world is broken, but I think it's still soft. That one undid me, because broken things cut, but soft things bend. They hold warmth. They carry echoes. They can be reshaped. Maybe this isn't the end of everything. Maybe it's just the ground, softened by rain, waiting for something to take root. I'll be here, as long as I can. You know where to find me. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell, still transmitting on 82.5. Night's fallen again. Hard to tell how many hours are passing between each broadcast now. The sky doesn't mark time the way it used to. The stars don't answer. They just blink, like they're watching us quietly. Maybe they've always been watching. Maybe they've seen this kind of thing before. This is day 0, but it's starting to stretch. I don't know if we're still on the same day anymore. Doesn't feel like it. Feels like the clock stopped and everything's just looping. Not forward, not backward, just here. A man outside Tulsa sent in a reel-to-reel tape. Said he'd been recording local voices, people in his neighborhood, telling short stories. A woman who once worked at a flower shop described watching bees return to her garden this week. Said it was the first color she'd seen in days. A young man talked about finding an old board game in a flooded attic and playing it with strangers by candlelight, no one caring who won. And then an old woman, her voice rough but warm, said this: I used to think the dollar made me free, but it was just another kind of leash. I didn't know how to live until I had to. There's a kind of wisdom in these quiet reflections. It's not the kind of thing you hear in press conferences or economic forecasts. It doesn't wear a suit. It doesn't care about graphs. It just speaks. And maybe that's what we need to start doing more of. Not explaining. Just telling. Just remembering. Let me shift gears for a second. We got news from a small farming community in eastern Nebraska. They've converted their local library into a trading hub. Not a big place, but the shelves are still standing, and the roof doesn't leak. The books are still there. Fiction, manuals, old gardening guides. And now each visitor is asked to take one and leave something in return. Doesn't have to be a book. Could be beans. Could be thread. Could be a promise. They're calling it the ledger without numbers. I like that. A kind of economy built on faith and borrowed pages. A girl there, maybe 11, maybe 12, wrote a note and left it between the pages of an atlas. Dear world, if you're still out there, I hope you're not scared of us. That's the kind of message that sits in your chest for hours. We've also heard more about the resistance forming near the old Colorado Springs corridor. They're not calling it resistance in a political sense, just people who refused to disappear. They've taken over what used to be a defunct satellite operations building. Now they use it to track movement of people, of supply lines, of weather patterns. They've built a kind of nerve center using analog tools and handwritten maps. The kind of thing we thought we didn't need anymore. And here's the amazing part. They're not trying to rebuild the country. They're just trying to keep it from unraveling further. One road at a time. One map at a time. They've asked for help. If you're skilled in navigation, logistics, radio tech, or even cartography, yes, people still draw maps by hand. You're wanted. You're needed. If you can make it to the Springs and you've got something to offer, go. But go smart. Go prepared. And don't go alone. Some cities are sealing themselves off. We've confirmed at least 3. Pittsburgh, Sacramento, and New Orleans. Locals have barricaded bridges and tunnels, not to hurt anyone, but to stop the flood of people escaping worse places. It's survival triage, and it's brutal. A man in Sacramento said they've assigned gatekeepers, volunteers who rotate every 4 hours to guard the main access points. They let people in based on contribution. If you've got tools, you're in. If you've got skills, you're in. But if you just have paper money or promises, you wait. He said he's turned people away. He hates it. It tears him apart. But he said if they open the gates too wide, they'll all fall. I don't have a judgment for that. Only sorrow. Some of you have asked if there's any official word from the military. There's been a few scattered messages, mostly from local units acting independently. The chain of command, as far as we can tell, is fragmented. Some bases have gone completely dark. Others are converting their fuel and food reserves into community distribution hubs. There was a base near El Paso that opened its gates for exactly 12 hours, let in 500 civilians, then sealed itself off again. No announcement, no broadcast, just silence. We don't know what happened after that. For those of you still holding on to hope for a central message, a fix, a top-down solution, I won't tell you to let go. I'll just say this: don't wait with empty hands. Do something with them. We got another message scratched into a sheet of aluminum, carried here by someone on foot. No name, just a line burned into the metal with heat and patience. The money fell, but the sky stayed up. I keep thinking about that, because it's true. No matter what the headline said, the sun still rises. The wind still moves the trees. The stars still watch. And you? You're still here. I want to say something personal before the power flickers again. I don't know what tomorrow will look like. I don't know if the station will stay upright, or if I'll even be able to keep the batteries going through the next storm. But I do know this: if there's one person out there, sitting in the dark, wondering if anyone else made it, yes, you did, we did, and we are not done. This is Casey, signing off for now. If you're breathing, if you're listening, then you're part of something that hasn't ended. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell, coming through on 82.5. The wind outside is slower now, not calm, just tired, like the land itself is resting for a while. Sometimes it feels like even the weather is trying to figure out what comes next. I want to talk tonight about quiet heroes, not the kind with medals or uniforms, just people doing small things, quietly, over and over, because no one else will. Got a message today from a nurse in Ohio. Name's Marie. She stayed behind in a retirement home after the staff left. Didn't run, didn't freeze, just stayed. She's feeding 17 residents with canned goods, powdered milk, and whatever she can scrounge from nearby houses. She says most of them don't know what happened. They just ask why it's so dark outside, why their families haven't come. She tells them there's a storm, that they need to wait a little longer. She sings to them in the morning, reads to them at night. Her voice cracked when she said, "They still think I'm getting paid." Marie, if you're listening, you're a lighthouse in a world gone dim. And one day, if this ever turns around, I hope the world remembers your name. In eastern Tennessee, there's a group of musicians who travel from camp to camp. No fuel, no trucks. They walk, carrying battered instruments and pots of dried lentils. They play for food, for shelter, for stories. Said their only rule is, never repeat the same song twice in the same town. They call themselves the Dust Choir. They don't ask questions. They don't want to know what you've done or what you've lost. They just want to play. And in return, people give what they can. Sometimes a can of peaches, sometimes a place to sleep, sometimes just a warm look. That's enough. Further up the Appalachians, in a part of West Virginia that used to be a coal town, they've reactivated an old mine, not to dig, but to shelter. The tunnels stay warm through the night. They've rigged pulley systems to bring down air and mirrors to catch and redirect sunlight for a few hours a day. It's crude, but effective. They've drawn maps in chalk, tunnels for food, tunnels for sleep, one for music, one just for silence. And that's what they call the place now. Silence. A town with no noise and no shouting, just whispers, footsteps, and the sound of people remembering how to be still. We've gotten questions about communications, how people are still connecting if the towers are failing and the power's out. The answer is, slowly. Shortwave bands are still strong between midnight and dawn. Morse code works best. Analog tools are beating digital ones every time. People are building wind-up transmitters, bicycle-powered repeaters, and even repurposing old car stereos. If you're near a mechanic or someone who used to fix ham gear, ask questions. Offer food or warmth in return. We need each other to stay connected. There's also something else happening. Messages are being carried the old way. By foot, by bike, written down, folded into jars, tied to branches, passed between strangers with nothing but a nod. The road is talking again, like it used to. That's how we got word of what's happening down in Baja. Small communities, once tourist spots, have turned into enclaves. They use shells and driftwood as tokens of trade. They light their homes with old whale oil lamps, melted candle stubs, pieces of broken solar panels patched with tape. And every Friday, they hold a telling. That's what they call it. No market, no church, just people gathering to speak one story each. One real thing that happened to them. No lies allowed. And if someone speaks a lie, they pour water on the fire. Simple, honest, hard to fake. I think we're all starving for that kind of honesty now. The kind that burns in your chest when someone tells you the truth, even if it hurts. There was a child in Kansas who sent in a drawing. It came folded in 4, wrapped in plastic, tucked into a tin of powdered milk someone left at a checkpoint. It was a picture of a house, not much of one, just lines and a chimney, but above it was the sun, and above that, in big shaky letters, "We are still here." That paper's taped to the wall beside me. I look at it every time the signal flickers, because that's it, isn't it? That's the whole point. We are still here, no matter what we've lost, no matter what's gone quiet. We are still here. I spoke to a man this morning in Iowa. Used to be a priest, now he just calls himself Len. Said he stopped preaching, started planting. Said he's got 10 rows of carrots and a bucket of seeds he guards like scripture. He said, "I used to offer forgiveness. Now I offer food. Both are holy." That one stayed with me. Because maybe that's where divinity lives now. Not in buildings, but in small kindnesses. In someone giving without asking. In someone seeing you and not looking away. Before I sign off this hour, I want to leave you with something from my own life. Back before the collapse, when things still made sense, or at least felt like they did, I used to carry a small photograph in my wallet. Nothing fancy, just a picture of my brother and me fishing on a riverbank. I lost it last week, somewhere between the tower and the supply shed. I've been looking. I've torn through every drawer, every bag. I think it's gone. But this morning, I stopped looking, and I realized something. I can still see it. I remember the sun on the water, the way his laugh echoed, the way I thought we'd be old men doing the same thing someday. Maybe we still will. Maybe not. But the memory is mine. and no currency collapse, no blackout, no silence can take it. If you're listening now and you've lost something, someone, something, a home, a place, a rhythm, know this: it lived, and you carry it. You carry it in your feet, your fingers, your voice. Even now, especially now. This is Casey Darnell, 82.5. Still speaking, still listening, still here. And if you're still breathing, still moving, still loving in whatever way you can, then so are you. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell on station 82.5. The night is thick. It feels like the air itself is listening, like the sky's holding its breath just to hear what we'll say next. I've got the windows open a crack, and I can hear the trees creak outside, like they're stretching after too many still hours. You can almost feel the silence bending around you in moments like this, like something waiting. We've been calling this day 0, but I don't know. Feels like day 10, or day 20, or maybe we've moved into something else entirely. A stretch of time that doesn't belong to the calendar anymore. I got word from a man in northern Arkansas. Said he was walking the old railway line outside of Batesville. Just him and his dog, headed nowhere in particular. He stopped at a broken train signal and found a notebook wedged between the bolts. Inside, notes from other travelers, dates, thoughts, places they'd come from, places they were going, warnings, some hopeful, some heartbreaking. One just said, "If you're reading this, take the water bottle under the stone. You'll need it more than I do." The man took the bottle, left a jar of peanut butter in return. That's the currency now. Not I owe us, not gold bars, just small kindnesses left for strangers you'll never meet. I've been thinking a lot about value lately. What something's worth when the whole system it belonged to has collapsed. A shovel now is worth more than a credit card. A warm coat beats a luxury watch. A working lighter is practically sacred. But above all of it, time. Time given to someone else. Time spent helping. Time spent listening. That's the currency that matters. In Vermont, there's a bakery that didn't shut down when the collapse hit. No flour shipments, no trucks. But they had a cellar full of grain. So they milled it by hand. Started baking again, once a week. The bread gets handed out at dawn to anyone who shows up with something to trade. Wood, herbs, even old books. They call it the loaf line. And here's the beautiful part. Every loaf comes with a slip of paper inside, a message, a line from a poem, a memory, a joke. Bread for the belly, they say, and bread for the brain. That's what we're rebuilding with now, little crumbs of soul. A shortwave signal came through earlier from someone traveling through the desert on foot. They didn't give a name, just coordinates and a description of the stars. Said they'd been following constellations instead of roads, because roads aren't safe anymore. Said they navigate by Orion and sleep by the moonlight when it's strong enough to see coyotes coming. I wonder how many people out there are doing that, moving not by map, but by memory. Not by GPS, but by stories passed down, trailheads remembered, skies that haven't changed in thousands of years. We got another message, this one by firelight, scribbled on the back of a cereal box and hand-delivered by a courier from Iowa. A woman named Grace wrote, "We haven't had power in 9 days, but every night we gather around a lantern, and we go around the circle, Each person tells one true thing from the day. Just one. It keeps us from forgetting we're real. That's how we preserve ourselves now. One true thing at a time. I've got something I need to confess. Earlier today, I thought about leaving, just walking out, taking a backpack and heading west until the signal died behind me. Not because I don't believe in this, not because I've lost hope, but because I'm tired. This kind of tired doesn't sleep off. It settles in your bones. It whispers, "What's the point?" But then someone knocked on the station door. A boy, maybe 13, on a bike with one flat tire. He handed me a note. It said, "My dad and I listen to you every night. He says your voice is the only thing that still sounds like before. Thank you." He didn't wait for a reply, just pedaled off. I sat there with that note in my hands for a long time, didn't say a word, just breathed. That kid kept me here tonight. Not because I'm special, but because the sound of a voice, any voice, can remind someone that they still exist. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Speak when you can. Say names, tell stories, whisper memories into the dark if you have to. Just don't fall silent. Don't let the world forget your voice. There's a town out in Arizona. Used to be nothing but a truck stop and a few trailers. They've started calling it Ember. Nobody knows who started the name, but they say it fits. Each night, they light one fire, just one, no more, no less. It sits in the center of the gravel lot, and they take turns feeding it, sticks, cardboard, old furniture, whatever they've got. It never goes out. If someone has a song, they sing. If they have a memory, they speak. If they don't, they sit. That's the rule. You don't leave the circle until you've given something, even if it's silence. They say the fire's been burning every night since the bank shut down. I think about that fire a lot. Wonder how many others are out there like it. How many people are holding on to light even when everything else fades. I'll be signing off for a bit to let the equipment cool, but I'll be back. You know I always come back, and if you're out there, waiting for a voice to prove you're not a ghost, this is it. This is your sign. You're not invisible. You're not lost. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell, 82.5, still here, still real, still speaking. This is Casey Darnell, back on 82.5. If you can hear this, it means the relay kicked in again. Batteries holding. For now. The signal's not perfect, but then again, neither is anything these days. We do what we can. We patch what we must. Sometimes survival is just about holding the tape together long enough for someone else to cross the bridge behind you. There's a woman up in northern Michigan who sends me letters through Travelers. Her name's Beth. She doesn't sign her last name. Says she's not important. Says the garden is. She's building it on land that used to be an elementary school playground. Took out the monkey bars, kept the sand pit for carrots, turned the tetherball pole into a makeshift sundial. The kids help water things with old milk jugs. And the cafeteria kitchen, still intact, is now a root cellar. She wrote this in her last note. We don't talk about the collapse. We talk about the tomatoes. That's what keeps us sane. And I believe her. The collapse, the dollar, the panic. It's not what fills your belly at the end of the day. It's the handful of potatoes you pulled from the ground, the fire that stays lit, the faces that meet yours when you say, "We made it another day." We've been collecting stories from runners coming through what's left of Memphis. The city's fractured, but not gone. That's the thing about river towns. They know how to bend. They know how to float when the ground gives out. There's a group down there calling themselves the Cord. Not a gang, not a militia. Just people tying neighborhoods together, block by block, like threads. They use old bed sheets and rope to connect buildings. Literal cords stretched across streets so people can navigate in the dark without getting lost. That image, people walking through the ruins, hand on a rope line like climbers on a mountainside, that one sticks with me. Because isn't that what we're all doing? Gripping the last strong thing we can find and pulling each other forward. We got a relay message from a woman in South Dakota. She runs a salvage team out of an old airport hangar. It's not official, nothing is, but they call it the lift. They take bikes out every morning, 5-mile radius, never more. Bring back tools, wire, old screws, busted machinery that might still breathe if given the right hands. She said her 12-year-old son is the best mechanic they've got. Took apart a generator and rebuilt it with parts from a toaster and a child's toy robot. She calls him the boy who speaks machine. She also said something else. The world didn't die, it cracked, and we're living in the spaces between. It's those cracks we're trying to patch, not with cement or law, but with care, with intention. There's a rumor circulating up the eastern coast, a kind of legend now. People talk about something called the convoy. Nobody's seen it, not clearly. Just the aftermath. Food dropped at crossroads, medical kits left in coolers, zipped shut. No notes, no tracks. Just aid, delivered and gone before sunrise. Some think it's a rogue unit of the National Guard. Others say it's volunteers from Canada. I don't know what to believe, but I believe in the result. I believe someone's out there still driving, still giving, still going. If you're part of the convoy and you're hearing this, thank you. Even if you're just a story, you give people something to hope for. Hope has value. Not just the fuzzy kind, not just the wishing kind. Real hope. Hope that has dirt under its nails, that walks on blistered feet, that burns the last of the fuel and still keeps moving. Let's talk about Anchorage again. We've had multiple confirmations now that the city is running. Barely, but running. People have taken over the harborfront buildings and strung power from wind rigs and rooftop panels. The cold helps. Food lasts longer. Tensions don't flare as hot. They say there's an archive being built, written by hand, updated nightly. Paper pages, each one a record of what happened, what was traded, what was fixed, who arrived, who left. It's not fancy. Just bound pages, strung with twine, stored in weatherproof bins. But that's how memory survives. Not with servers. With stories. With pen and patience. In Alaska, they call it the Book of Stillness. I hope someone down here starts one. Closer to home, we've seen movement on the old interstate routes. Not convoys, not yet, but clusters of foot traffic, people walking north. Some have carts. Some carry little more than a jacket and a radio. They're calling it the drift. Not a march, not an escape, just movement, slow and uncertain, following rumors of warmth, of order, of anything. If you see them, feed them, speak to them, ask their names. Names matter more than ever. A man in Montana wrote to say he started recording names on tree bark, carves them gently, then rubs in oil to seal it. Not in a cemetery, on trail posts, fence lines, barn doors, any surface that will last longer than paper. He says each one is someone he met, someone who helped him, someone who smiled, someone who died. Each name is a candle he can't light, so he gives them bark instead. We're starting to receive questions again. Short ones, honest ones. Where can I go? Is it worse near the water? Do you think the banks will come back? Will we? I don't have answers. I only have echoes. But I do know this. There's a small group in Colorado, 3 families last we heard, who play music every night. Violins, an old tin drum, a plastic recorder. And every night, before they sleep, they play the same melody. Not because they're good, but because sound, real sound, reminds them they're still alive. So if you don't know what to do, play something, sing something, tap on a can if that's all you've got. Just make a sound that wasn't there before. Then let it carry. This is Casey, Station 82.5. And if you're out there tonight, if you're holding on, keep holding. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell, back on Station 82.5. It's after midnight now, or what used to be midnight. The sky doesn't care. The clocks don't matter. All we've got left is what we choose to mark. Meals, stories, the space between sleep and waking. If you're still with me, that means your world hasn't gone completely quiet. Let's start tonight with the Southern Plains. We've received news of a stretch of land between Amarillo and Lubbock that's turned into a shared farm. Nobody owns it. Nobody claims it. It just is. They call it the middle. Every morning, the people who live nearby walk in from opposite directions, bringing water, seed, and tools. They don't speak much. They plant in rows, pass tools back and forth, and leave before the sun gets too high. Nobody watches, nobody manages. It's just silent cooperation. The harvest, when it comes, is split evenly, or left in baskets near the fence line. Anyone can take what they need. You don't take more than you can carry. You don't take if you didn't help, unless you're old or sick or caring for a child. No one wrote the rules. They just happened. And somehow, they're being followed. That's the part I can't stop thinking about. How, in the middle of a breakdown, people are still choosing decency. They could fight, they could hoard, but they don't. They show up, they bend, they dig, they leave food for strangers. I don't know what else to call that but sacred. Further east, closer to the old Mississippi Basin, we've got people reporting signs of return. Birds rebuilding nests. Trees blooming out of season. Cracks in pavement filled with green. I don't think the land even noticed our panic. It just kept moving. A woman in Natchez said she sat on her porch and watched a hawk circle a field for half an hour. No cars, no horns, just feathers and wind and quiet. And for a moment, she forgot the world had fallen. That's what nature gives us when we let it breathe. We got a voice message scratched into vinyl, one of those record-your-own disc type things from back in the day. A man had cut a short message into it using a heat stylus and a steady hand. Someone found it in a shoebox, left at a rest stop. The voice is hoarse but calm. He says, "We're learning how to be small again. That's okay. We were too big, too loud. Maybe now we can hear each other again." That one's been replaying in my head all day. There's something in that quietness. Something we lost when everything was always on, always fast, always ringing. Now that the buzz is gone, maybe we can hear the truth humming underneath it all. Let me give you something practical, while I still can. If you're low on light and you've got any vinegar or lemons and a few pieces of copper and zinc, maybe from old wires or dead batteries, You can rig a weak circuit, enough to run a small LED if you're lucky. There are diagrams making their way along the back channels. Ask for the lemon tree. That's what people are calling the guide. It's not much, but sometimes one point of light can keep a room together. There's been more chatter about the dollar, not in the old way. Nobody's betting on its comeback, but some communities are trying to fix the trade problem. Some have gone back to tokens, actual pieces of wood carved with symbols. Others are using song lyrics. Seriously, you show up at a gate and sing the chorus of a common tune, and that's your pass. If you know it, you're local. If not, you wait. Makes me wonder what kind of value we'll invent next. Maybe laughter will be worth something. Maybe kindness will be counted. There's a bar in Minneapolis that reopened last week. No power, no drinks, just candles on the bar, a room full of benches, and a person with a notebook. You come in, you sit, you talk. That's it. They call it the pour. And when you leave, you write one thing you remember about the night on a napkin and tack it to the wall. Over 500 notes already. Some funny, some quiet, some soaked from tears. That's the new currency. Stories shared in low light. Pain exchanged like old bills. Folded, torn, but still worth something. We've gotten our first confirmation of a satellite signal bouncing from Europe. It's weak, faint, but it's there. An engineer in what's left of Marseille has been pulsing out a slow-coded message every 6 hours. No demands, no updates, just 3 words, looping. Vous n'êtes pas seul. You are not alone. I think that's enough to keep going for another day, don't you? Someone in Oregon told me they've started rebuilding libraries. Not the buildings, the contents. They write books from memory, copy poems from scraps, draw diagrams from what they remember learning in school. One woman is transcribing an entire physics textbook by hand, page by page, from what she remembers. She said, "It might not be perfect, but it's better than silence." That's the phrase that'll stay with me tonight. Better than silence. That's what this is. Not perfection, not even safety. Just a voice carried across the dark to say, "I'm here. You're here. Let's keep holding on." This is Casey, 82.5, still breathing, still remembering, still reaching. You're not alone. Casey Darnell, station 82.5, still here, still holding. If the signal's fuzzy, that's on me. The West Relay Tower shorted last night. Something about ice building up in the dish. I took a trip out there this morning, just after sunrise. It's strange how quiet the air is before the day starts. Not peaceful, not serene, just still. There was a time when sunrise meant emails and headlines. Now it just means visibility. There's this new rhythm people are falling into, not based on clocks or alarms, but light, warmth, safety. You wake when it's bright. You move while it's safe. You sleep when the dark gets too loud. I met a man on the way back from the tower. He was standing by the edge of the river, pulling something up with a rope. Turns out he'd built a floating cold box, plastic container, weighted and sealed, tied to a tree and dunked in the water to keep perishables cool. Old idea. Simple. Smart. He said he stores eggs in there. Milk when he's got it. The river keeps it just above freezing. Then he said this. "It's funny. I used to spend $400 a month on groceries. Now I survive on half a dozen hens and a rope." And he smiled. Not out of pride, out of disbelief. We never realized how little we needed until we were left with almost nothing. I want to share a message from somewhere near the Carolina coast. A group of fishermen rebuilt part of a pier using driftwood and steel cable. Not to fish. There's not enough bait, and the tides are unpredictable. They built it just to stand on. They call it the lookout. They take turns, one at a time, going up there and watching the horizon. For what? Anything. They say it reminds them that something might still be coming. Help, a boat, a bird, a change. They write what they see in a notebook nailed to a wooden stand, and they never miss a shift, even when the fog rolls in, even when it rains, because maybe the act of watching is the only thing that keeps them from falling in. Further west, near Des Moines, people are digging root cellars again. Real ones. Not hobby projects. They're measuring temps, lining the walls with stone, stacking shelves with cans and carrots and hard bread. Some are repurposing basements, others are hollowing hills. They're painting signs outside, cold inside. Food kept here. Welcome if you help. One woman told me she keeps a guest log in her cellar, not for security, for memory. She wants to remember who walked through her door, who shared soup, who brought wood. She says someday she'll read it to her grandchildren, even if the world never goes back. I got a signal from someone holed up in a warehouse outside Phoenix. They've organized what they call a quiet zone. No talking unless necessary. No lights after dusk. Movement is coordinated by tapping on pipes and dragging stones in patterns. Why? Because they're surrounded by people who didn't make it. And they've learned the hard way that sound carries, that desperation listens, that if you want to be left alone, you have to be silent enough to disappear. They don't call themselves survivors. They call themselves ghosts. But they're still alive, still building, still feeding each other. So, maybe ghost isn't the right word. Maybe they're just echoes of what we lost, still moving, still refusing to be forgotten. Here's something that made me stop today. A runner from Indiana dropped off a letter. Handwritten, pages torn from a school notebook. It was from a teenager, no name, just age 15. She wrote, "I didn't understand what money meant before. I just knew we never had enough of it. Now that it's gone, I understand more. I don't miss it. I miss school. I miss walking down the hallway and pretending I wasn't scared. I miss knowing what the next hour was supposed to look like." That part right there, knowing what the next hour was supposed to look like, that hit me. Because that's the truth for all of us, isn't it? We've lost the script. Now we're just improvising. Stumbling forward in the dark, feeling for the edge of something that used to be a map. In the northern Rockies, near the Montana-Wyoming border, people are starting to mark trees, not for lumber, for messages. Symbols scratched into the bark. One line means a camp nearby. 2 means danger. 3 means supplies ahead. It's like the world is relearning how to speak without speaking. A new language, written in silence and shadow. We're also hearing that some are using mirrors to signal across valleys, shards of metal, glass, anything with reflection. It's low-tech, but it works. 1 flash for, "I see you." 2 for, "I'm safe." 3 for, "I need help." If you're in the mountains and you see a flash, stop, watch, respond if you can. Because even a flicker of light can mean life. Closer to here, we've confirmed a small outpost forming near Springfield, built around a feed store. The shelves are mostly empty, but they've reinforced the place. 2 levels. Watch points on the roof. They've got a rule. No weapons indoors. No questions for those who stay. And every night, everyone eats together. They sit on the floor and pass around whatever they cooked. 1 dish, 1 spoon. They call it the table. And nobody eats until someone shares something from the day. A story, a sound, a name. No exceptions. They told me, it's not about food. It's about not disappearing. That's the thread tying all of this together. We don't want to vanish. Not really. Not completely. We want someone to know we were here, that we mattered, that we kept going, that we lit fires in the dark and waited, just in case someone was walking toward us. I'm going to keep this going as long as I can. If the tower falls, I'll find another. If the batteries die, I'll build a crank. And if my voice fades, then remember the others. The nurse who stayed behind. The boy who drew strength from the stars. The woman planting carrots where children once played. Write their names on your walls, in the dirt, on your palms if you have to. Say them out loud, even if no one's listening. Say them so they stay real. This is Casey Darnell, station 82.5, still broadcasting, still hoping you're not alone. You're tuned to station 82.5. I'm Casey Darnell, the voice on the other side of the blackout, still sending out whatever words I can gather, still hoping they land where they need to. It's been a strange morning. You can feel it in the air, like the wind forgot which way to blow, like the birds stopped flying mid-sentence. I stepped outside to check the antenna lines, and for a long stretch, I didn't hear a thing. Not an engine, not a dog, not a crow, just stillness. There used to be comfort in quiet. Now it feels like waiting. There's been a rising number of walkers moving north. That's what some people are calling them. Not infected, not dangerous. Just silent people with backpacks, wrapped in whatever warmth they could find. They don't always speak, don't always ask. Sometimes they just pass through, nod, and keep going. A boy near Sioux Falls said he leaves bread out on a stump every morning, never sees who takes it. But by noon, it's gone. He keeps doing it anyway. Feels like I'm feeding the world, he said, 1 slice at a time. Let me tell you about a man in Georgia named Mason. He's taken it upon himself to hand copy the U.S. Constitution, not out of some nostalgia, not to rally anyone, just because, in his words, if we're going to lose everything, we should at least remember the things we were trying to get right. He writes 1 clause per day, in pen, on scraps of cardboard. He's up to Amendment 4. I asked him what he'll do when he's done. Start over, he said. Maybe by then I'll understand it better. In Montana, near a place called Three Forks, a group of ranchers has opened up their land. No fences, no claims. They just put a post in the ground with a sign that says, "Share what you take." And they mean it. Cattle roam. People walk among them. When someone needs meat, they leave a tool in return, or firewood, or a promise scratched into stone. Someone left a note on that post last week. We buried our guns. You gave us reason to. The world we lost was built on contracts. Maybe the one we build next will be built on character. Got a strange report out of Nevada. Can't confirm it, but the story's spreading. Word is, someone got one of the old slot machines running on solar, rigged it to accept bottle caps instead of coins. Payout is seeds, beans, corn, squash. Locals line up and pull the lever. Nobody knows who fills it. Someone just does. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. But the idea of it, pulling a lever and getting life instead of loss, it's enough to keep people walking back. There's a small island off the coast of Maine that's gone completely dark. No signals in or out. But one traveler came through 2 nights ago and said it was alive. Not in chaos, in peace. They've gone manual. They use lanterns, fish with line, grow in raised beds covered by tarp to keep the frost out. They don't call it a town. They call it a pause. Said everyone there speaks in soft voices, eats slowly, asks questions with care. When someone new arrives, they don't interrogate. They listen. That's what survival looks like in some places. Not noise, not firepower, just stillness, with room for someone else. Let's shift to the Southwest. We've had reports from communities trading using something called warm tokens, flat stones painted red, given to someone after they've offered kindness. You don't ask for one. You're handed one. When you receive a token, it's your job to pass it on to someone who earns it. No market, no exchange rate, no profit. Just a chain of gratitude moving from hand to hand. If we ever rebuild something close to what we lost, I hope that chain survives it. We had another strange thing come through the wire, a lullaby. Just a voice, soft and off-key, singing something in what sounded like Czech or maybe Slovak. No request, no name, just the sound of someone trying to soothe the dark. I played it on loop for 15 minutes. Not because I thought someone needed to hear it. Because I did. There's something about lullabies. They're never really for the children. They're for the ones singing them, to keep the fear at bay, to say, we're still here. We can still hum, even now. Someone asked me yesterday, what should we do with our money? The paper, the coins, the cards. My answer? Burn it. Not in anger, not in spite. As a kind of funeral, a ritual, a way of saying goodbye to what no longer serves us. Then use the ashes. Fertilize your garden. Make ink. Mix it into paint and mark your walls with a new story. If you can't let go of it, it'll keep holding you hostage. This isn't about money anymore. It's about what you give and what you keep alive. Before I sign off tonight, I want to say something to the people who feel useless, who used to work in jobs that don't apply anymore. Data analysts, event planners, consultants, marketers, writers. You are not useless. You're just waiting to be repurposed. A data analyst now keeps track of rainfall and food ratios. An event planner organizes communal planting days. A marketer knows how to persuade, and now uses that voice to calm crowds or teach children. A writer keeps the story going, keeps it from vanishing. We've all got a place here. It just doesn't look like it used to. But the need is the same. We still need to eat, still need to shelter, still need to believe we're worth saving. I'll be back when I can. Until then, if you find a piece of light, reflect it. If you find something beautiful, protect it. And if you find someone kind, follow them. This is Casey Darnell, 82.5. Still here, and if you're hearing this, so are you. This is Casey Darnell, still transmitting from station 82.5. Still watching the wires, still waiting for a flicker on the relay board. Still hoping somebody out there is listening, because the nights are getting longer, and even the wind sounds unsure of itself. Today, I want to talk about how we measure time now. We used to mark it in minutes. Meetings, coffee breaks, traffic, the glow of a microwave as lunch spun in circles. Now we count differently. By sunrise and frost. By the sound of boots on dirt. By how many spoons we have left before washing is no longer optional. By how long since we last saw a stranger's face. I got a signal from a man living in what used to be a movie theater outside Spokane. He's using the old projector room as a lookout. Runs a line from a car battery to power a small lamp. Said he doesn't show films anymore. But every Friday, he lowers a sheet across the stage and invites people to tell stories. Real ones, made-up ones. Doesn't matter. The town calls it Friday Night Features. No popcorn, no tickets. Just words. Sometimes someone brings a harmonica. Sometimes someone just cries. They said the theater hasn't been this full in years. We heard from a woman in Oklahoma who's been using the pages of old magazines to line her windows, not to block light, but to share messages. She writes her thoughts in thick marker across the glossy ads, leaves them facing out. People walk by, read, nod, sometimes leave notes of their own, tucked under bricks or scratched into the sidewalk. A slow conversation, one panel at a time. We've got confirmation of an old post office reopened near Toledo. They don't send mail, not in the way we used to, but they've repurposed the boxes. People come and leave things for each other. Small things, a pair of dry socks, a tea bag, a sharpened pencil. The rule is, if you take, you leave. The wall outside says, the mail still moves, even if it has no address. That one stuck with me, because I think that's what most of us are now. Messages, still in motion, even if we don't know where we're going to land. There's a growing pocket of movement out of the Pacific Northwest, something people are calling the Trail Reclaimed. They're walking the old Oregon Trail, not in wagons, not in groups of hundreds, just families, friends, pairs. Step by step, they're retracing the path west, not to escape, but to remember, to remind themselves what it felt like when people still believed they could build something at the end of a hard road. A woman with a dog and a tarp messaged in from Idaho, said she's seen them pass, silent, steady, weathered. Nobody rushes, nobody complains. They stop by streams and light small fires, then move again, always west. She called it a slow wave of remembrance. A man sent in a recording from the edge of Texas, played a song on a broken guitar, said it only has 3 strings, but that's enough for a melody. Then he said, that's how I feel too. Not complete, but enough. Let me say that again, in case someone needs to hear it. You don't have to be whole to keep playing. You don't need all the strings. Just enough to carry the tune. We've had more word from Alaska. They're calling themselves the Northern Ledger now, writing by hand, 1 sheet per day. Log of everything that happens. Trades, travelers, small victories, births, deaths. They mail it by foot down through Canada, 1 page at a time. It takes weeks to get here, but when it does, it's like opening a window into a different kind of endurance. The last page we received ended with this line. We are still cold, still rationing, still standing. That's what survival looks like now. Cold, rationed, but standing. There's something I want to share from my own notes. I found an old voice message saved on a drive I thought was dead. It was from last year, before the collapse. Just a friend checking in, asking if I'd seen the game last night, wondering if I wanted to meet for coffee. I played it 3 times just to hear what normal used to sound like, and then I deleted it, not because I'm trying to forget, but because the world we're in now deserves my full attention. We can't live backwards. We've got too much to build, too much to carry forward. I'm hearing that some towns have started marking their own time, not with clocks, but with bells. They ring one in the morning, one at noon, one at night. Not alarms, just reminders that we're still here, that the day happened, that it's okay to mark it. Before I go, here's something from a girl in Missouri. She sent it in with a packet of seeds wrapped in cloth. She wrote, "I don't know if the seeds will grow, but I'm planting them anyway, because maybe something still wants to live." That's it, right there. That's the whole story. We're planting anyway. This is Casey Darnell, 82.5. Still planting, still singing, still waiting for morning. You're not alone. This is Casey Darnell on station 82.5. Still standing, still broadcasting, still here. We had a thunderstorm last night. No forecast, no warning. Just a sudden crack through the sky like something ancient waking up. And I'll be honest, it rattled me. I'd forgotten what thunder sounds like when there's no glass offices to muffle it. No traffic noise to drown it out. Just raw sky and earth and nerves. Sometimes I think the weather's trying to remind us that it's still in charge. That even with everything we've built, or lost, we're still guests here. The storm knocked out the backup antenna on the west roof. I spent the morning climbing through soaked insulation and frayed cable. My hands are raw, but we're up again. Barely. If you're hearing this, the line's still good. So let's talk about life in the ruins. We heard from a cluster outside Charleston. They've claimed an old marina and turned the dry-docked boats into homes. They call it the dockyard. Each family gets a vessel. Doesn't have to float, just has to keep the rain out. They hold meetings on the pier, use oars as flagpoles. One of the kids painted Port of Hope on a life ring and hung it on the gate. People come from miles around with wagons and backpacks just to trade for rope, salt, or matches. They share coffee made from roasted acorns. They boil seawater. They ration fish. They teach kids how to tie knots and read tide charts. And every night, when the wind dies, they blow a conch shell 3 times. One for the lost, one for the found, one for the trying. That last one's the one that matters. Trying. There's an outpost forming in Nevada's high desert, somewhere between Tonopah and the nothing around it. They've set up what they call a mirror line, signal towers made from scrap metal and sheets of polished aluminum. Every half-mile, a tower. Every tower flashes light at the next one at dusk. Not for SOS, not for rescue. Just to say, we're still lit. You're still not alone. You can stand on a ridge and watch them blink in sequence, like a slow wave rolling through dust. They don't speak a word, but you know what they mean. Up in the far north, we've been told that a crew of sledders has begun moving supplies between remote outposts. Real sleds, dogs, skis. They follow the snow lines, carry bandages, dry goods, letters. They don't ask for payment. Just space by the fire and news from the south. They're calling them ghost sleds because they never stay long. You blink and they're gone. And when they leave, there's always a note. A small scrap tucked somewhere quiet. We passed through. Keep going. I've been keeping a list of places that still glow. not with power, with people, with rhythm, with some kind of steady pulse. I don't have coordinates for all of them, but I know their names: the loaf line, the trail reclaimed, the ledger, the table, the book of stillness, the mirror line, the dockyard, the pause, and all the unnamed corners, the kitchens, the basements, the church halls turned clinics, the fences that don't keep people out, but guide them in. If you've made a place like that, thank you. You're not just surviving. You're stitching. We got a note from a retired school teacher in Mississippi. She's reopened her one-room schoolhouse. Only now, she teaches things she never used to: how to sharpen a knife safely, how to treat water, how to tell direction by the sun, and poetry. Always poetry. She said, if we're going to rebuild a world, we'd better remember how to feel one. There's been movement in old industrial zones. We're hearing that people are clearing out factories, not for manufacturing, but for shelter, big spaces, brick walls, room to breathe and organize. In one building, someone painted a message in 3-foot letters across the entrance: don't just survive, make room. I don't know who painted that, but if I ever meet them, I'm buying them whatever's left of the world's last cup of coffee. There's something about that line, something clean. We can't just wait this out. We have to carve out room for others, even when space is tight, even when food is low. Because without each other, there's no point to any of this. I want to tell you something personal. When this started, I didn't know what I was doing. I just kept talking because the silence scared me more than the noise. But lately, it's different. I'm not just speaking into the dark anymore. I feel something speaking back. It's in the stories, the notes, the gravel in your voices. It's in the weight of people still trying, still planting, still building lanterns from broken jars. I used to think the dollar collapsing was the end of us. Now I think it might have been the beginning of something we never dared to try before. A world where we look up from our screens. A world where your neighbor matters more than your stock. A world where stories are currency and kindness is wealth. I don't know where it ends, but I'll keep talking until we find out. This is Casey Darnell, Station 82.5. We're still lit. You're still not alone. This is Casey Darnell on 82.5. Voice still steady, signal still holding. We've crossed another dusk. One more day counted, not by calendar or paycheck, but by warmth, hunger, and the sound of someone knocking at your door with a question instead of a threat. That's how most of us track the days now. I've been keeping a journal. Not for news. Not even for myself. For the voice that comes after mine. For whoever finds this station when I'm gone. Each entry is short. Just what happened, who passed through, what worked, what broke. I write in block letters, slow and clean, so there's no guessing. The last page says, talk to a girl with windburn and boots too big. She asked if I had any tape, not for gear, for a book. That was 2 nights ago. She didn't say her name, just smiled when I handed her duct tape. Said she'd been carrying the same copy of Island of the Blue Dolphins for months, and the spine finally cracked. She left with her pages intact. We've been getting updates from lowland regions in Kentucky. A large community has taken root in an old horse racing track. The oval now grows corn. The stables house families. The announcer booth, where they once shouted odds, is now used for readings, poetry, letters from lost sons. directions to the next safe zone. They renamed the place Ashwood. No gates, no watchtowers, just a blackboard at the front entrance with one word written every morning. Yesterday, steady. Today, humble. We've also received word from the outskirts of Salt Lake. A monastery that hadn't seen visitors in years has opened its doors to passers-by. They take in anyone willing to share what they know, how to fix shoes, make soap, knit, sew, gut fish. No preaching, no conversions, just quiet work, shared bread, and warm walls. They've started keeping a wall of handprints. Each guest dips their hand in ash water and presses it against the stone. One for every person who made it through the gate and left better than they arrived. If you find yourself near there, leave your mark. It's not a monument, it's a mirror. We also got a call in from someone riding the freight lines. He calls himself Boxcar Jonah. Says he's got nothing but a blanket, a harmonica, and a knack for reading train schedules by feel. He broadcasts once every few days from rail junctions, short messages, mostly warnings. Track near Council Bluff washed out, avoid, water's high. Refugee cluster under Bridge 14, no firewood. Bring something. He ends every broadcast the same way. Don't be a hero, be a hand. Simple, right, because heroes burn fast, but hands carry. They lift, mend, catch. I'd take a dozen hands over one hero any day. In Oregon, we heard about a woman who found an abandoned greenhouse on a college campus. She swept the glass, cleared the vines, and began planting. Now it's full. Tomatoes, squash, beans. Rows of green breathing behind broken panes. Every plant is labeled. Every label includes a date and a name. Not hers, but the person she thinks would have appreciated it. A parent, a student, a stranger she saw sharing water on the trail. She said, "I'm growing a memorial." And she is, a living one. Sometimes grief becomes a seed, and what grows from it isn't just sorrow, it's fruit. There's a man in Denver. He used to be a therapist. Now he just listens. Every morning, he sits in a public square with a sign. Tell me something you're carrying. People sit. They speak. Sometimes for minutes. Sometimes for hours. He doesn't fix. He just holds space. And that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. Because when the whole world is broken, listening becomes a kind of architecture. A way to rebuild the shape of what it means to feel seen. A child in Vermont mailed us a packet. Inside was a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures in a forest, one holding a radio. Underneath, in thick purple letters, we are still looking for each other. That's the truth, isn't it? We're not waiting for salvation. We're looking for each other. Across roads, across rivers, across memory. We're calling out into static and hoping the echo returns with someone else's voice. If you're hearing this and you're somewhere safe, write it down. On a wall, on your gate, on your sleeve. Let people know. If you're not safe, hold on. Keep moving with the sun at your back. Keep your head low, but your eyes open. There are still places that welcome, still people who carry, still small fires burning where the world once fell dark. I'll be back when the line clears. This is Casey Darnell, 82.5. Steady, humble, alive. You are not alone.